I'm just letting you know that. No,
I'm gonna give it right back to you.
Yeah, that's fine. No, episode 8. We're Vision Gap.
Vision Gap.
Talking a lot about brand. We've got our Vision Gap white paper at thevisiongap.com. You know, we've been doing these videos and lots of cool ones going back. It's been pretty fun.
Yeah, like a very much a build-up. And I think today what we're talking about is something that I think most people think of when they hear brand.
100%. So
Right?
that's exactly, you know, the point is that most people, when they hear the word brand, they think of brand identity, the logo,
Yep.
the font, the colors, all that stuff.
Yep.
But that, hopefully, we've proven over the last 7 episodes that that's not all that a brand is.
Absolutely.
Right? And so what have we talked about so far? Just a quick recap, because when we say brand strategy, and that's what we've been talking about for weeks now, what are all the different elements that we've talked about now?
So target audience.
Target audience is definitely one.
We talk about personas.
Personas and motivations and buying factors to drive like what is really pushing people in the marketplace.
Value propositions.
Value propositions, one of my favorite. What makes you different and unique, and how do you tell that story of saying there is no one else like us out there?
Yeah.
And then
Got
what else?
Messaging.
We did positioning statements, so really talking about how do we turn our value propositions into messages.
Yeah.
Things like a short identifier, you know, a we believe statement, flag in the ground I call it, the elevator pitch. And then we also talked about brand voice, the persona, tone, language, and purpose stuff. And so lots of different things. You okay there? Need some help? Yeah.
Don't have a brand voice today.
Don't have a brand voice? Yeah. Yeah, where is that? You still haven't done anything. So we've talked about all those different elements, and those are the different pieces of what I consider a brand strategy.
Yeah.
And your identity, that logo and that visual representation is just one of those 6 major pieces that you're talking about when you're building a brand strategy.
Yeah. Lot that goes into this.
Yeah.
I think obviously the visual, you know, identity is really important, but there's a lot that goes into it that, you know, it's kind of a comprehensive approach to it when you're looking at it from the way we're going through brand strategy.
Exactly. And it does all lead up to this identity piece, because for me, the brand identity, the logo, is a personification of your culture, you know, who you are as people, where the organization's going, things like your values, mission, vision, and your brand strategy, what makes you different, your voice, how you sound, you know, that persona, tone, language, and purpose, all of that rolled into something that is a visual representation of that to the world. I think the one thing, though, that people get hung up on is how do you take all that and put it into a single logo?
I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
And the reality is you don't.
Okay.
I think that's where a lot of people do get hung up, and at what your font is and how does that font portray these different messages, your colors, look, and you know, it's very sleek, and so you're choosing colors that represent what you want to say as an organization, and then it's really the shape of the logo or how it's created, and so all of those different things can represent it. I think where people get stuck, though, is that they want it to feel like someone looks at it and it
can't, but it should be representative of kind of the feel. So the more authoritative brand, is it going to have the playful, wacky logo?
Yeah.
That just wouldn't be congruent. So I think that's a good takeaway, is really that it should be representative of all those things, but it's not explaining. It's just, it should be consistent with all of that.
And that's where people get hung up, is they want, you know, to be able to slap that on the table and someone that understands everything about their organization, and that's not going to happen.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. But we do want it to represent that culture. We want to represent the brand strategy. And then I think what we really want to do is set a foundation for the rest of the visualization. So when we're talking about building a website, we've got those colors and fonts, and we're defining that brand identity that we're using when we're creating materials, the angles, the shapes, all of these different pieces. the logo is a simplified representation of that projects your name, and then hopefully when the logo is put in context of something like a website or a print material, that's where we start explaining.
Yeah.
And we've got messaging, all that messaging we did in the value props and the positioning statement with the brand identity, the logo, and then the identity that we're filling out in the rest of the look. And so that's where it all comes together. And so the logo, why it's important is it sets the foundation in many ways for the entire brand identity, which then goes out to everything that you're putting together.
And you want a strong logo. You want something that's iconic, that kind of grabs someone. I mean, not everyone's going to be able to hit that. Not every business, but that's the goal. Is you want something that when people see it, they understand nuances of that brand, right? They get kind of what it stands for, and maybe they get a feeling when they see it. That's ultimately what you want to do, is drive the way people think and feel based on those visual cues.
I totally agree. And that brand identity is your colors and fonts and your logo and all these other pieces that you use. And really the key is that you're creating an identity plan, an identity guide that then sets up whenever anybody internally creates anything, anybody that you hire, that you've got this foundation that then creates consistency across everything that you do. And I think that's one of the important things about creating that visualization of the brand strategy pieces, is then hopefully building a consistent feel that is emblematic of what your value propositions are and your culture and all those different pieces.
I think good guidelines, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. Is that next week? Or we're going
to next week. I mean, and we'll get into it a little bit, but how do you then communicate this brand strategy out? How do you hold people accountable to it? I mean, that is obviously, not to get too far into it, but such an important piece is that if we've gone through all this effort to define our target markets, define why our target audiences buy, what makes us different, all of this, and then into this brand identity, we want to make sure that we communicate it and we hold people accountable to staying consistent to it, because we put so much effort, and we know that effort is also strategically aligned to how we want to grow the organization. So important. So that's going to be a good discussion about how we communicate and build consistency into all these different things.
Yeah, very good. Takes discipline, but it's it's kind of steering that ship. If you know where you want to get to. Favorite logo?
Put you on the spot.
That's a good one.
Got it. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I got no. I think today people are moving to more simplified marks. Something that is, as I say, like a logo mark or a type mark, where it's like this, where there's not necessarily a symbol, it's simple and it's representative. I think that flexibility and what you can do around that brand is really key. Doesn't mean we've got little minor elements as part of ours that we can leverage across stuff, but I like simplification these days, rather than, I don't know, snakes on a plane or something where it's too graphical.
Joe Rogan Experience, right? It's like his face and then a third eye. And
it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
But that's, brand identity. It's pretty simple, but I think it really does help take this series that we've been doing and the last 7 episodes about all these different pieces, and truly, again, this is how you differentiate yourself in the marketplace. The logo should help emphasize that differentiation and communicate about the brand, but it rounds out all of these different elements that we've been talking about now.
For sure.
And again, a lot of what we've been talking about is the strategy and the messaging, and it's verbal, and now we've finally gotten to something that's helping represent that in a visual way.
Yeah.
So
we actually have an exciting announcement that we'll be making, I think, next week, right? Related to all the brand strategy and people that want to learn more of this stuff, right? So we'll be making an announcement next week, so we will tell you guys more details on next week's show. Anything else for today?
You want to hint at it?
How much of a hint?
Well, we've got a really cool event coming up where we're going to be bringing people in with what we've done here that will really help an organization take what we're talking about and move it forward.
So if you're interested, tune in, because it is exciting. The one thing is it's going to be very limited.
Yeah.
Just very limited.
Yeah, that's right.
But it'll be really good. I'm excited about it. We will tell you guys all about that and more next week.
Yeah.
Till then, you guys have a great weekend. Thank you for tuning in. Go to visiongap.com and download that white paper. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, excited to see everybody. Have a good weekend.
Take care.
Bye.